So I want to give the Marvels and Loki season two's finale a review, and I guess I'll give a quick one, no spoilers, but I'm gonna more go into the Marvels because I don't know, I feel like, but anyways, Loki is carrying Marvel, so was Guardians when it released, but 2023 genuinely will go down. No matter, let's say Marvel next year releases like five masterpieces. No matter what happens, 2023 will be officially the MCU's worst year. Quantumania was below average. I would even call it's the definition of mid. Like when I think of a mid movie, not just a bad movie, but a mid movie, I'm always going to think of Quantumania. And then Secret Invasion was just awful. The Marvels, I'll say this though, it's better than I expected it to be, but my expectation was down though. Like it was down all the way there, and it kind of just came down here where this seat is. But Loki season 2 was an amazing finale. I'd say Loki season 2 is peak Marvel, but I don't think I've ever seen an MCU show that was good from every episode from beginning to end. This season had no filler episodes. That was my only criticism of season 1. Season 1 had like 2 filler episodes, which is really bad for a show that has 6 episodes. But yeah, I mean, this season didn't feel like it had filler. It felt like every episode mattered, but most importantly, it developed the character of Loki perfectly. But the Marvels, bro, that's where it really went real bad. Like the Marvels, it's just awful, bro. Like, it's unfortunate that Marvel is down this road. Hopefully, they can get better writers. It looks like there's changing things, with Feige having, changing up the writers for every other movie, every other show. But the Marvels, the one saving grace was Kamala Khan. She was great in it. But everything else is just so, man, it's just so, it's not a bad movie. I had fun with it. But it was that kind of, like, have you guys ever seen a movie where you were having fun, you weren't thinking much about it, but then after, like, let's say an hour passes by, you just keep thinking about all the bad things because you weren't really thinking about it at the time, but then it just kind of hits you. That's what the Marvels did, except the only difference is there were times in this movie that I was like, bro, like, I can't. There's a musical scene that I completely forgot about that they talked about a while ago, but there was a musical scene that was so, it didn't feel like it belonged. It felt like it was an episode of Rick and Morty. It felt like a scene you would see in like a comedy. This movie is a comedy, but at times it wants you to take itself serious. I think the entire cast was just lame. Monica, Carol, the characters are so poor. There was one aspect they had with Captain Marvel where it was about don't meet your heroes. It was like, it shows you that she wasn't perfect. But what I don't like about it is that the movie just expects you to know that. They keep referencing events of a previous thing that happens that makes you think, why can't we have had a movie about that rather than this? It's kind of like Matrix Resurrections. In Matrix Resurrections, a lot of time has passed, and they talk about that there was a war where the AI machines start befriending the humans. And when you're watching Matrix Resurrections, you're kind of like, why couldn't we have gone that? That sounds fun. But everything else just is boring, lame. Matrix Resurrections is just a bad movie. That's what this movie kind of feels like. It kind of feels like Captain Marvel 3 without that Captain Marvel 2 that sounds good, but it just doesn't exist. It kind of reminds me when I was a kid. I watched X-Men The Last Stand before I saw X2 because I was pretty young. I hadn't read comics at this point. I was probably like, 7, 8 years old. And I was doing a binge, but I didn't have X2 because I had the first X-Men and then I had X-Men Last Stand on DVD. But I watched The Last Stand before I saw X2. And I was so confused because a lot of things happen in X2 that they reference in The Last Stand, especially the Dark Phoenix thing, which I had no idea about. And so it got confusing. That's kind of what this movie feels like. It kind of feels like the Marvels feels like Captain Marvel 3 at times. And still, Carol still remains to be this weird character who has no personality. It kind of feels like she has the ego of Tony Stark without the reason, because with Tony we get why he's egotistical, we get his character development, we see the trauma he's been through, but everything else feels kind of just thrown out. With Carol, it just kind of feels like this is a character you're supposed to like, but we're not going to give you a reason to like her. Monica, similar too. Monica kind of just feels like, oh, have you seen WandaVision? You know, her introduction, boom. She's just kind of plot device. She's just kind of there to be like, oh, okay, we need to have 3 characters lead this movie. She just kind of feels like she's there just because they're like, oh, we set her up in WandaVision. I wonder what we'll do now without WandaVision. We don't want to make a movie about her as Photon, so we're just gonna throw her in this movie. There's this interesting plot point, or not plot point, but this side part where she has anger towards Carol. Now, when they introduced that in WandaVision, I thought that was interesting. I'm like, oh, what did she do? That's interesting. In the movie, it's just, oh, you never came back to visit me. It's like, she's out there defending planets. And that's something that I forgot. The first movie takes place in the 90s. This one takes place in the 2020s. So 30 years has passed. And there's all we hear about Carol, and we heard this in Endgame too, it's just she's protecting other planets, but we never get to see it. We just hear a little bit about it, and it almost kind of feels like we're missing something. It feels like we're missing, like with Captain America and the MCU, we always talked about his missions in World War II. We talked about him fighting off his best friend in the Winter Soldier. We talked about all these adventures he's had because we got to see it. Then eventually when they talk about it in future movies, you're like, oh, I remember that. I was in that adventure. Even in Loki Season 2, when Loki brings up that he invaded New York in Avengers 2012, or that he invaded whatever place, or that he tried to take the throne, we get that. We respect him and we understand that because we saw that. It's kind of like when your friend is talking about an event that you were there to see. Like, I don't know, that time you got drunk at a bar on a Friday night. You know that event because you were there at that event. That's what it kind of feels like Captain Marvel. It just kind of feels like events that we haven't seen, but they keep referencing it, and they're trying to expect you to like her as a character. And by the way, it's really cold right now, bro. It's super cold. So everyone wearing the hoodie like this, bro. I look like that Kermit. Like, oh my god, it looks like a KKK thing. It's a good thing is the hoodie isn't white, because if it was, people would be like, oh, KKK and all that. I'm not Camu. I'm not racist, all right? But anyways, the movie still had some good in it. Some of the action's actually fun. Like, there's times I had fun. Some of the humor was good. Most of it was just mid. There's a random joke, and you see this in the final trailer, so it's not a spoiler, but Nick Fury randomly yells out "Black Girl Magic," and it was weird because my theater, no one laughed. There was a lot of jokes that they did laugh at, but for the most part, it was just that joke itself was like, why does, huh? It felt like a random, it kind of reminded me of the Batman movie where Zoe Kravitz, she randomly, Selena Kyle, she randomly just says these white privileged males, and it just threw me off so much. I'm like, did someone actually get paid to write that? But I'll say this though, it's not as mid as Quantumania. It's not as mid as, or I wouldn't even say Love and Thunder's mid. I'd say that's actually a bad movie. This movie does have heart. The 3 main characters do. It feels like their chemistry off screen transported to on screen. So you feel that in this movie. You feel it, but still, I really wonder what this movie would have looked like. Honestly, I think this movie would have been Dark World boring if Kamala wasn't in it. The villain was just generic. She felt like Ronin. But the thing about Ronin is that there was actually something interesting with Ronin. With Ronin, he was actually the only man before the Avengers eventually that stood up to Thanos and said, nah, bro, like, this is our world. Like Ronin, well, Ronin didn't say that, but he was like, nah, I'm standing up to Thanos. And there's an interesting lore there, his hatred towards Xandar, and it was interesting. He's still a generic villain. But the thing about Guardians is it wasn't about the villain. It was about the heroes, the cast, and how much we love the Guardians. Remember, Guardians Volume 1 is my favorite movie. But I'll say this, Ronin is a mid-tier MCU villain. This movie uses Ronin but in a more generic way, where it's just and this time she doesn't even have a power stone, so you're wondering where the heck does her power come from, and it's just random. Nick Fury in this movie was nerfed. He wasn't nerfed in Secret Invasion, so that's one thing I can say Secret Invasion does better than this movie. But overall, I really hope it's a learning lesson. This feels like an AI committee wrote this. It felt like ChatGPT wrote the script. And Kamala Khan's family was also funny to see. Again, the only good part of it was the Miss Marvel part. And what it sounds like is a lot of people are going to be, the people who watch this movie and hadn't seen the Miss Marvel show, they're probably going to go on Disney Plus and see the Miss Marvel show because of it. So there's one W that it got. But other than that, this movie's just not so good. Not so good. Loki, though, on the other hand, I would talk about that a little longer, but I'm already kind of late to it. But Loki was peak. That finale was great. The way they set things up was just phenomenal. It was nice to see Loki's character development. I know people are like, oh, I missed the old Loki. The thing is, wouldn't it get boring if we had a villain for what Loki got introduced in 2011? It's been 12 years. And his only thing is, I'm bad because I want the throne. What I like about it is that they do fulfill a character development that we've seen from the beginning with Loki. But I do like that now he found that purpose, because it used to be his purpose was, I just want to rule because I hate my brother and dad. It feels like now it's like he has an actual purpose, an actual motive. And it feels like they're using that. And I love that about Loki. But the unfortunate thing that Marvel did is, why did they release these things at the same day? It genuinely feels like it just made the Marvels feel worse, because imagine before you go to the theater, you're like, oh, there's a new Loki episode, let me watch it. The Loki episode's so good, and you're like, look at Marvel being great, look at Marvel being amazing. Then you go to the theater, you watch the Marvels, and it's just bad. Like, it's just I wouldn't even say it's a bad movie, I'd just say it's a below average movie. And what's even worse about this movie is it's not even the second worst thing the Marvel Studios has brought out this year. Like, you would think in any other time period, whether it's phase 1 through 3, and even 4 to an extent, you would think this is bottom tier, it's bad. It's kind of like Dark World, where Dark World was that one bad movie that came out of a bunch of good movies like Doctor Strange, Age of Ultron, and all that. Unfortunately, Marvel Studios is in a point right now where the Marvels is not even the second worst thing. I'd say it's better than Secret Invasion, better than Quantumania, because the one thing it has over Quantumania is it has heart. Quantumania does not have heart. That was literally a movie that Jonathan Majors and Paul Rudd carried, mainly Jonathan Majors. But overall, Marvel really needs to get it together. Like, this is just unacceptable. But that's my review for the Marvels. I know people are going to take this review and think, oh, I'm trashing it. No, I think it's better than I expected it to be. Seeing the reviews, I was like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. But this is that kind of movie where if you watch it again, you'll just be reminded of how, to me, it's like Wonder Woman 84. Wonder Woman 84 was a movie that when I first watched it, I was like, it's not that bad, it's not that bad. But then I watched it again like 2 years later, and I was like, oh my, this is actually horrible. I think that will happen with the Marvels. And hopefully, honestly, what they should have done with this movie is they should have just made the Marvels 2. And I do like her dynamic with Carol Danvers. I did like that. That was one great part of the movie. But I wish they had called it Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel or something. I don't know what the subtitle would be. Miss Marvel, and then just call it the movie. Because she's definitely a character who I think is likable enough to carry a movie. I mean, she carried a show, and she carried a movie that had an Academy-winning actress. And honestly, one of Marvel's biggest failures has been Brie Larson as a whole. She's a tremendous actress. I've seen her in Scott Pilgrim. I saw her in this one other movie. She's a great actress. But she's just wasted. And Captain Marvel was such a mid movie. The thing is, it just feels like Captain Marvel is a character you're supposed to find cool, but they don't give you a reason to find her cool. I don't mean to be that guy, but it literally feels like, guys, strong female, cool, right? That's not how you write a character. You want to have a strong female? Valkyrie was cool in Ragnarok. By the way, her cameo didn't make sense in this movie. Kamala Khan is cool. Okoye is cool. Nakia is cool. Black Widow is cool. Scarlet Witch is cool. But Carol is so boring. It literally feels like Superman without personality. That's what it feels like. It feels like Superman just being like, oh, I can save the world, I can fly, I have lasers, blah, 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 blah. Kind of feels like that. That's what Carol feels like in the MCU. And I'm not the biggest comic fan of her. Like, I never really read Captain Marvel comics that much, and even the few that I did, I never found her interesting enough to really care about her. But I don't know, man. It's just her character. The thing is, Marvel's proving the trolls right. Marvel is proving those people right every day by being like, first of all, you made that first movie was below average. Below average. And you marketed her as the next Captain America, the next Stark, the next face of the MCU. And you give her a mid movie with a bad script and everything. And then after that, you have her in Endgame. She was the most unlikable part, to the point where nearly everyone cheered when Thanos punched her. Like, that's how low it got. And then after that, Endgame came out in 2019. It's been 4 years. And then you finally give her a movie. And during that time, you just bring her in 2 post-credit scenes. She does almost nothing. You make her apprentice better than her by a significantly large, who shows her up in her own movie. But the worst part of it all is when you finally give her a sequel, you don't even call it Captain Marvel 2. You call it The Marvels. And she's not even the best part of that movie. And it's like, you can't expect to call fans sexist, racist, or whatever if you're not even giving the character good material. I want to see strong female characters. I want to see strong black female characters. I want to see strong characters of all sorts. But you're not going to get that with such bad writing, and then being surprised when people are like, oh, what, they didn't like the movie? Yeah, we didn't like it because you wrote it bad. Because fans, at the end of the day, we just want to pay our money. And yeah, sure, there's obviously a lot of sexist people out there who just hate Brie Larson because of a stupid comic she made years ago. But you're giving them ammo. It's like getting bullied at school. Let's say you get bullied at school because you're dumb and you're a dork, and they're bullying you. All right. You come to school the next day, and instead of fighting back, you're like, here's my lunch money, here's my money, you take it all. It's like, you're not stopping anyone in that point. You're just giving that bully ammo. That bully's going to keep hitting you because you're letting him hit at you. That's why a lot of times when a man gets bullied, they have to fight back. That's every journey that a man has to go through. It feels like they're doing that with Captain Marvel. They're like, oh my god, the bullies are being mean at us, so we're going to do all this dumb stuff and not even give her a good character. And then you're surprised when they eventually just relentlessly attack you for it, because you're giving them that ammo. You're giving the bully the lunch money. You're giving him a reason to give you a wedgie and dunk your head in a toilet bowl. Like, that's what you're doing with the character of Carol Danvers. And honestly, like, Brie Larson, if I'm Brie Larson, if I'm her agent, I'd say, like, and you know what's funny? Brie Larson is less in the Fast movie, that Fast 9. And she's a significantly better character than there. At least her character there is not interesting, but for the little amount of time that she's in it, she's actually entertaining. She's fun, and you can get a little bit of out of her character. And even Scott Pilgrim, she's barely in it, but she's fun to watch. She's a great actress. She's won an Academy Award for a reason. But you just give her a bad, lame character who literally, it just feels like all they did on the script was write strong female character, do that. Don't give her a good story, don't do anything, just make her a woman, make her strong. And that's just what it is. It's just, even the villain to an extent was that. But there was something interesting with the villain, but just the villain eventually became generic. It was like Steppenwolf in the 2017 Justice League movie, where she's just bad because she's bad. Although the motive was interesting, my only problem with the motive is that it literally felt like we missed out on Captain Marvel 2 that should have come out a while ago. But that's Marvel. And honestly, Feige, if you care about strong female representation, get a good writing staff who can write her. Don't just say, this is a good woman character. No. If you want to make a good woman character, you got to get good writers, and good writers make a great, compelling story. You can't expect us to like her just because, oh my god, woman. Even Miss Marvel was great. Again, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Nakia, Okoye. There's a lot of great, strong female characters, but if you just throw them off and just are like, okay, woman, 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 it's not going to help you. And you're just giving them ammos. But anyways, that's it for the review. It's really cold, bro. It's so cold. Thank you guys for watching this review. And yeah, ciao.